There were a lot of conspiracy theories already flowing, trying to explain why it is that Kari Lake lost. Some of them are not necessarily as nuanced and intelligent as others. So here is something that's going around. As of when I clipped it out, it had 7,000 retweets. This is from a woman who says, flashback. Fox 10 accidentally releases early graphics showing Katie Hobbs winning over 2 weeks before the election. So what they have is a local Fox affiliate having like a test of their election day visualization software. And they are saying this is proof that the race was going to be stolen because they already have the graphics ready. And I have a couple of problems with that. Now, others are accepting this whole cloth. Del Nichols says the fix was in a long time ago. Now we know why Hobbs didn't have to debate. The new sheriff in town says they always tell you what they're gonna do before they pull it off. Well, first of all, why would they always tell you that? That seems like a great way to undercut their efforts to take the election from you, new sheriff. Also, this was accidentally leaked. You're making it seem as if it's an intentional thing. Why did they accidentally leak it? But that's of course not the significant issue. I have more significant issues. First of all, with the concept that if you were going to steal an election, you'd loop in the local Fox affiliates. Why would you do that? What part of stealing the election would be getting every individual news network on board? Why would you need to do that? You could just steal it and then they would have to report that result. It's not like the individual news networks are going through the votes themselves. That's all centralized, apparently in a place that you're stealing the election. So that seems a little bit weird. Also, by the way, if they previewed 2 weeks ago how she was gonna win, why did they show a graphic with her winning 53-47 when it looks like it's not even gonna be 51-49? So again, the result not being close to what is on the graphic is not convincing these literal thousands of people who are retweeting this. And beyond that, how do they think these graphic packages work? Why would they bake it in before the election rather than just making it the day of? They clearly have the capacity to do that. They do that for sports, they do that for weather, they do that for politics. How could this possibly convince so many people, especially once you add on that if we're gonna go to all the trouble of stealing these elections, specifically in Arizona, why is it that they allowed so many Republicans to win congressional races in Arizona, including very close races?
If elections were being rigged and stolen, don't you think that the election, the candidates would be more different? Like in the United States, we have people like Kari Lake running against people like, Hobbs, which is a race where Kari Lake is an extremist and a fascist, right? So there is a difference there. But when you think about what these candidates typically get done once they're in public office, it's far more interesting that you see these people govern on behalf of corporations and take a bunch of money from corporations. Like nobody needs to rig elections because so many people who get into public office in the United States are doing the same exact thing. But for some reason, it's more interesting to pretend like these elections are two teams against each other that hate each other very much, are very different, and are not gonna govern similarly at all, which they do. They all govern on behalf of corporations. Like that's a much more interesting conspiracy theory than maybe they're rigging our elections and we have such low turnout. Like we don't have 100% turnout anyway. Like they control so much of the narrative. They don't need to rig the elections.
Let's understand the natural pathway that God already created for us as human beings, not robots, not cyborgs, okay? No. Not mind controlled, by the elite and by the media and by the George Soroses and the Charles Schwab, all of those guys who want to control us. The Bill Gates wants us to be jabbed, every 3 months so that they can put these particles inside of us that are controlled by 5G, this nanotechnology stuff that they've been experimenting on animals. I mean, it's just terrible what they're trying to do.
I love the imagery of a guy who is worried about technology turning us all into cyborgs wearing absolutely massive headphones that make him look like one of the characters from Star Wars.
Lobot.
Lobot, exactly. So look, that is Leon Benjamin. And I know what you're probably thinking. Oh, TDR's got a video of someone on the right saying something crazy about technology or whatever. And I get it. If that was all it was, this wouldn't be worth talking about, because I could spend time on rightwingwatch.com and we could literally do this show on that all day, every day. That is not what was happening here. Leon Benjamin is notable not only because he believes that the vaccine is going to produce mind control via 5G, but because he is running in Virginia's special US House election coming next month. This is February 21st, so it's coming up soon. Special election for Virginia's 4th congressional district, which was vacated due to the death of Democratic Representative Donald McEachin. Benjamin unsuccessfully ran for the seat in 2020 and 2022. No idea why he wasn't successful. But here is what's even worse than just him being in the race. Virginia Republican Governor Glenn Youngkin, who has attempted to portray himself as a moderate, and that's generally how the media talks about him, endorsed Benjamin during his 2022 run. The Virginia GOP backs his campaign, writing that he will defend the interests of working families in Congress. You know, their interests in not being mind controlled by Bill Gates and George Soros. He is the 100% totally official guy, and he is absolutely out of his mind. Brett, what do you think?
I'm proud of the general trend that's happened recently, where people in what would traditionally be considered like red districts, namely Georgia, have said, yeah, but the guy's a psycho. Like, I'm sorry, we need to call out when the GOP, when a giant party apparatus is for purely political reasons, whether they're policy based or just political posturing, they don't want to lose a district to somebody else, are backing a total baddie person.
That's the
and so and then it is incumbent upon us to remind everyone that even though the Herschel Walkers are no longer in the picture, the Dr. Oz's are no longer in the picture, the Mastrianos are not running right now, stuff like this keeps happening. Yeah. And it's worth pointing out that many of the wins achieved by the Republicans, and remember this, many of the wins achieved by the Republicans are because they rely on us not paying attention to stuff like this.
Yeah.
Their feeder to the Supreme Court is not too different from this. It's like it's like minor league baseball, where they look and instead of seeing someone with like this crazy slider, they see someone who wrote a crazy paper, and they're saying you're on a fast track to becoming a Supreme Court justice to the United States. They find someone like this, like, we need to funnel money and endorsements to this race because we need it strategically. But we can't let them shove these weirdos down our throats.